Hey Nils, great to have you on the AI Champs as one of the AI champs. My first question would be, do you remember your first emotions when you tried ChatGPT?
I was pretty late to trying ChatGPT, uh, and I used it for generating a sales pitch just to try. And I was blown away, both scared and excited by how well it did. Uh, since then, we have created our own uh, pitch writer, kinda an internal knowledge base that we keep feeding all of my appearances, everything I write. We just keep feeding it to this one internal AI uh, that helps our sales team figure out how to pitch, but it also helps onboard our staff, which is pretty cool. And I had a lot of different emotions. Like, oh my god, we were like 50 people at the time, and I thought like, wow, we could definitely we wouldn't have needed to grow past 40 people if we had had this tool earlier. And oh my god, maybe we could have just been 20 people if we had these tools even earlier. And uh, eventually the anxiety set in of like, oh my god, maybe I'm not hireable in 5 years. Maybe there's a window of opportunity for me to feed myself before I just become a battery for the AI. Um,
Yeah, or maybe with the same 40 to 50 people, you can do much more. You
we're
don't
doing a lot
need
more,
fewer
definitely.
people, you can just do more.
Yeah, yeah, you can do a lot, but of course we also realized what the limitations are. Uh, it's not spatially aware, and I think that the final feeling that I landed in was that actually there is a long-term job security in building the kind of technology that helps AI see the world. Uh,
Amazing. Let's talk about that. Tell us about OK Labs and POS Mesh.
So, what we've been working on in some form or another since 2019 is collaborative spatial computing or co-located uh, spatial computing. The idea is that you want many different devices, computers, AI, to be able to reason about the same physical space together so that they can understand the environment and understand their relationship to each other. We got started in 2019 with a very simple use case in mind, we thought naively. We wanted to create AR overlays for the tabletop game Warhammer. Uh,
Wow.
that's how we got started. We wanted to make AR overlays for Warhammer, and I didn't know anything about AR at the time. I just thought it was cool. I had no previous experience in AR, and realized, like a lot of people do when they start building AI, that it's close to impossible to have a shared experience where the same people see the same thing in the same place at the same time. Uh, and the reason why is computers don't have an inherent understanding of where they are in the world. Uh, the GPS can tell you roughly where you are on the planet's surface, but only to a few meters accuracy. And it doesn't work at all indoors because, believe it or not, uh, GPS is a line of sight technology. For the GPS to be able to correctly place you, you need to have an unbroken line of sight to several satellites at the same time. And where I am today in Long Beach, California, that works great because California is very flat. It's essentially a big parking lot. The GPS works very well. But of course, cities get bigger than that. If we imagine we're in New York has over 900 buildings taller than 100 meters. So now GPS is starting to struggle, right? But it gets worse because cities actually get bigger than that. If you go to my home of Hong Kong, Hong Kong does not have 900 buildings taller than 100 meters. Hong Kong has over 4,000 buildings taller than 100 meters. So GPS is very bad in Hong Kong. But it gets worse because cities get bigger than that, actually.
Wow, you actually now answering my question when I was in Hong Kong when we met. Like, it was so bad. I couldn't find my taxi like all the time.
It's because the city is so three-dimensional that the GPS really, really struggles. And if you zoom out just a little bit more, like if you hop in an airplane and you fly above Hong Kong, you will see that the city of Hong Kong stretches way out into the distance because it's wall to wall with 9 other cities, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, etc., in an area called the Greater Bay, right? And the Greater Bay is about two-thirds the size of the greater Los Angeles metropolitan area that I'm in now. So it's not that big. It's smaller than LA. But in that area is 85 million people and more high rises than in all of America and in all of Europe combined, right? Just in the Greater Bay Area. So this kind of sets the tone for why is spatial computing necessary? It's necessary because GPS is not enough to understand these complex big environments. The standard for what an environment is in this century is Asian cities. Like that's what a big city looks like. There's nothing uh, even remotely comparable to Hong Kong in the West. Um, and for robotics, robots are not going to use the GPS. Like just forget it. That's not how. I just gave a talk at this conference actually, where I asked a hypothetical. Let's say it's the year 2030, and you and I are chilling with our humanoid robot that we just bought from Elon. Thank you for the discount, Elon. I appreciate it. But it's Saturday morning in 2030, and we don't have any food, and we don't want to go to the grocery store. So, of course, we're going to ask our handsome robot friend to go grocery shopping for us, right? Let's imagine what that entails. Like, what will it take? Well, first of all, the robot has to leave our apartment, and then it has to find the grocery store. And it's not going to do that with Google Maps, right? You can't navigate by GPS alone. So it's going to need some other system to navigate to the grocery store. But then what? Right? Okay, now you're in the grocery store and we're looking for the ketchup. What do we want to happen? Do we want the robot to go around looking for the ketchup, or do we want the robot to just know? Of course, we want the robot to just know, right? It should just walk in, pick up the ketchup, and go out. It shouldn't have to go and scan the whole store section by section looking for the ketchup. So how might that work? Um, well, now it gets tricky because the layout of the store is actually a very well kept secret. Retailers are very, very sensitive about the layout of the store, how much shelf space is giving to each product, etc. So any kind of visual positioning system that robots use today will not be allowed inside the store because that would mean creating a copy of the store's layout and storing that on someone else's cloud. And that will for sure not happen. Many retailers already today have a policy that you can't even store information about the visual merchandising on a cloud. Full stop, right? Super, super sensitive.
You mean inside these companies they don't store on cloud?
Not related to the visual merchandising. Like
Mhm.
no data related to the visual merchandising may be on the cloud, right? Like they're very, very sensitive about this information. And okay, so then what? Are we gonna let the robot walk around the first time and scan the whole store? Again, no. The store won't allow it. If you go into a grocery store today and you just try filming the whole store, they will throw you out, right? They will not allow it.
I'll try it
So
here,
what?
Bali.
Try, yeah, give it a try. So what will need to happen? Right? What will need to happen is that the store needs to be able to answer spatial questions from the robot. The
Mm.
robot needs to be able to make it to the store and say, "Hello, I'm looking for the ketchup." And the store needs to answer where the ketchup is in a way that is understandable to the robot. This is what the collaborative spatial computing means. You need to have a shared coordinate system. What does a shared coordinate system mean? Well, it means that however we express the location as a coordinate, it has to be in the same coordinate system that I'm in, so I understand even what the coordinate means, right? All positioning is relative, and you need to be in the same coordinate system. So how's that going to work? Well, this brings us to the POS mesh. The POS mesh is the idea that positioning systems should be self-hosted, so the grocery store gets to have its own positioning system, decentralized, and data sovereign. So when the robot is at your place, Tony, the robot is connected to your POS mesh domain.
Mm-hmm.
And when it goes out on the street looking for the grocery store, it might be connected to the city's domain.
Mm-hmm.
And when it arrives at the grocery store, then it connects to the grocery store's domain. The alternative to this is a centralized visual positioning, where a company like Google or Niantic or Meta has a map of the whole world. That's nightmarish for a couple of reasons. The reason it's scary, first and foremost, is that visual positioning, which is the best way of doing precise positioning for a robot today, is a trade where you tell the positioning system what you're looking at, like you give it your camera feed, and in return, the positioning system will tell you where you are. So now imagine a world where you're wearing AR glasses and you're sending your camera feed to Meta just so that the AR glasses will work, right? If you stop streaming, it doesn't work anymore. That's a fucking nightmare. Luckily, it's not necessarily going to happen that way, because a lot of people feel about their private places and commercial places that they don't want these big companies to have that kind of insight into what we do, right? You and I might insist that when we buy Elon's robot cannot send the camera feed back to Elon. It can only talk to our PostMesh server at home when it's at home. And this is what we're building.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Many questions arise. So it's really interesting how you explained the robot of like which you ever system using pose mesh will be switching between like pose mesh of your flat and pose mesh maybe of your building, stuff like that. So how does the system detect the change, for example, like the flat your like apartment and your building is just one door away, so how will it understand that it's already outside of your apartment and in the building post mesh?
So different domains can register relationships with each other. So if you and I are neighbors and we share a door, then we can register that this door maps to a door in the other apartment, right? So let's say we name the door Steve, right? And then you can say, here's Steve in my domain, and I can say, here's Steve in my domain. And that way, when the robot walks out of the door Steve, it can already know that now it needs to try to connect to my domain.
mm, okay, maybe I'll try to rephrase it. How does the robot know precise its precise coordinates right now in a specific pose mesh?
It doesn't, right? The way the discovery service works is usually through the scanning of a QR code, right? So the QR code has a unique identifier that the robot takes with it, takes the unique identifier, and then it connects to the PostMesh discovery service.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, hey, I just saw this QR code with this unique ID. Can you tell me who this belongs to? And the discovery service says, oh, yeah, this one belongs to the grocery store. You need to connect to the grocery store's domain to learn about this QR code. So, okay, then the robot connects to the grocery store. It says, hey, I am the robot. Here is my PostMesh reputation. I'm a good boy. I'd like to learn about this QR code I just saw. And then the grocery store can choose if it wants to answer. But it does want to answer. So it says, yeah, that is in fact my QR code. And here is the position of that QR code in my coordinate system. So now the robot can do some simple math for a robot and figure out, well, if the QR code has that coordinate in that coordinate system, and I can see the QR code now, so I know what coordinate it has in my coordinate system.
Mhm.
Now I can just do a transform and reconfigure my thinking so I'm in the coordinate system um, of the grocery store. And once it's done that transformation, so it's now thinking in the coordinate system of the grocery store, now the grocery store can start sending more information about the space, like where can you walk, where are the walls, etc. So this is the concept of the domain. The domain is registered with the POS Mesh discovery service so that it can be found, right? And the first thing that happens is that you authenticate, make sure that, are you allowed to be here? Are you a good boy? Have you staked your reputation, etc.? And provided you are let in, provided you have access to this domain, the domain will first make sure you're in the same coordinate system. And once it's done that, it can start filling in more information about the physical space that you might need. But also, once you're in the right coordinate system, you can also start contributing data to the domain. So let's think about this grocery store again, and you're the robot walking around, and you turn your cameras on because you're looking for the ketchup, right? You need to actually see the ketchup to grab it. And because you've turned your camera on, the grocery store says, hey, I actually don't know how many products are left on the shelf where you are right now. I'm willing to buy your camera feed for the next couple of minutes
Hmm.
just so I can do stock taking,
Nice.
right? This is the concept of collaborative spatial computing. And this is what the POS Mesh allows. So the many devices can collaboratively populate and maintain and heal the domain. But there's one domain owner that decides who gets to participate. And they also get to monetize the domain.
Mm-hmm. Um, but it still needs to rely on the visual information, right? Because, like, for example, the store can tell the robot where the walls are, where the shelves are, but it cannot tell where the other, like, people who are visiting this shop or like other robots are. I mean, robots, okay, they can communicate between each other, but the people, so it doesn't bump into people, say.
It depends, actually. If you build a really advanced domain with connected web cameras and stuff like this and
Mhm,
people detection, there's nothing stopping you from having a real time domain that
mhm,
knows where all the people are. So even a robot with no cameras at all can navigate that domain without colliding with people. The Postmesh does technically make that possible,
mhm,
right? But of course, most robots are going to want their own camera and they're going to be able want to be able to turn it on. So this is also what the reputation is about, right? That, hey, I want you to promise that you're not recording this, right? You're not recording what's happening. No, I'm not recording. I'm just looking so I can find my way.
mhm, mhm. Interesting. And like, even if it's closed source, and how do you actually, yeah, how do you okay, the robot says I'm not recording, but it was actually recording. How do we enforce uh that? Because
The
if
Postmesh SDK has control of the camera. So if the Postmesh SDK loses control of the camera, right, then the Postmesh SDK will say, hey, I don't have control of the camera anymore. I don't know what this robot is doing. And then reputation removed,
Mhm.
right? You hand over the control of the sensor to the onboard Postmesh component.
Okay, but it's, yeah, it's an interesting rabbit hole to go into, because there can be a potentially limitless number of sensors, which okay, we took the control of one camera, but maybe there are 10 more, maybe there are other sensors. So
Absolutely. It's a never-ending arms race. You can never get it absolutely right. But I believe part of the solution is having standards just like there are with phones. Like you can identify yourself as I am an iPhone,
mhm,
right? Like, I am definitely an iPhone. And
mhm.
because I am an iPhone, I have these following sensors. Um, it's never going to be perfect, but it's
So we
not
don't
perfect in
add
the world
uh,
today already, right? It's already possible for someone to walk into a store with a pair of smart glasses with a camera or whatever and record something, and you'll get away with it because you didn't get caught. The point is, you have to try to build systems that can catch you often enough and punish you severely enough that most people won't try to cheat.
Or, yeah, to the point of standardization, basically, we're not letting in non-standard robots in, like, the shop, for example.
That could be the grocery store shop. Yeah, it could
Yeah.
have a list of whitelisted models. It could, for
Mhm,
example, say like, look, I don't want any American robots. I only want cell phones. I'm okay with Korean robots. I definitely don't want any Filipino robots. Like, it could do all kinds of things. The domain owner gets to choose, is the point.
mhm, mhm,
The
mhm.
domain owner gets to choose.
Interesting, interesting. And so I have a follow-up question here from my AI co-host, Claudia. Uh,
Hey, Claudia.
she's not live yet, so she sent me her questions beforehand. So she said, I'm curious to dive deeper into the ethical implications you see in the trend towards AI with spatial awareness.
I, to me, the biggest ethical threat is the concept of centralized visual positioning. I, there are many things that are scary about AI, and there are many things that are scary about spatial computing, but the biggest, scariest monster is centralized visual positioning. And that technology already exists. Like, it's not sci fi. There are very good centralized visual positioning systems today that luckily haven't mapped the inside of our private spaces yet. But Google, for example, has built something called the Spatial API, which is super impressive. It's very cool and very scary. What they've done is they've taken all of the photos taken from Google Street View. You remember these cars driving around, and they've fed it into a very advanced machine learning algorithm tumble dryer that spits out a model of what the whole world looks like. And you can today, actually since 2 years ago already, I think, uh, send images to that API and get your position back in public places all over the world, often with less than 50 centimeters of accuracy, which is better than GPS, right? This is real today, but they don't know what the inside of your house looks like, luckily. And they don't know what the inside of your business looks like and what the inside of your grocery store, etc. But they're trying. In fact, here's something that just happened. Well, not that just, but it recently happened. You know the company iRobot that made the Roomba vacuum cleaner,
Yep.
right? The EU just blocked an acquisition of iRobot. Someone tried to buy iRobot. Now, who was it? Was it Tesla, the robotics company?
Xiaomi,
No.
probably.
It was Amazon, the e commerce company, that wanted to buy it, not because they're interested in robots or vacuum cleaners, but because they want to know what the inside of your house looks like,
Oh, shit.
right? This is, yeah, I mean, I would have like, if Boston Dynamics bought iRobot, okay, yeah, sure. Makes sense. Why is an e commerce company buying a robot vacuum cleaner? Because they want to know how big your house is. That's what it is. The arms race for building the visual positioning system of the world has started. In my cinematic universe, the bad guys, in my opinion, the worst of them all, is a company called Niantic.
Mhm.
Niantic are the guys that made Pokemon Go, which uh, I'm going to preface everything I say with there's a lot of amazing people working at Niantic, and they're super talented, and I'm definitely jealous, and I'm definitely a hater. All of these things. But still, Niantic has built a competing product that also does visual positioning. And if you carefully read their terms of service, which I've done, it states quite clearly that if you, Tony, as a software developer, build something using their visual positioning system, Niantic has the right to store data from your user's camera on their servers. Why are they doing that? Well, because of course they want to build a whole map of the world, right? And they don't inform your end users of this. In fact, it's your job to tell your end users, if you're using Niantic, that, hey, since you're playing my game, everything that your camera sees might end up on Niantic servers. So if you play uh, a game not made by Niantic, because they don't do this with their own apps, because they know that would be bad. They just do it with the people that use their technology, right? So if you make an app using Niantic's technology, then your users are, without being aware of it, perhaps without you being aware of it, uh, contributing to Niantic's map of the world.
Mm.
And so even the hypothetical bad guy company that's trying to look through the eyes of all people, that company already exists. They're already building a pair of AR glasses, and those AR glasses are going to use their VPS, right? Like, this is not a Black Mirror episode. This is happening right now. And I think it's very important for the decentralization movement to pay very close attention to this. I think that, let's take a step back. When Tim Cook announced the Vision Pro, he said that just as the Macintosh introduced us to personal computers and the iPhone introduced us to mobile computers, the Vision Pro introduces us to spatial computers. Now, that doesn't mean computers on your face. That's not what it means. A spatial computer is a computer that understands the world. Your iPhone is already a part time spatial computer. The only thing that's new about the Vision Pro is that it's only a spatial computer, right? And the reason Tim Cook says it this way is because Apple believes, just like Microsoft believes and Nvidia believes, and all of the big companies believe, that the future of computing is spatial computing. Just like computers changed every industry and mobile computers changed every industry, spatial computing is going to change every history. Like, this is another thing that's happening in capital H history. They really believe this. So there's a huge arms race to build this positioning service. And if it's done the wrong way, which by default it will be, because Google is building it that way, Niantic is building it that way, Microsoft is, like, they're all building it in this centralized way. The future will be that these companies will be able to look through your AR glasses and know how you feel about what you're looking at, because they can also look at your eyes. Like, they will be able to read your mind quite literally. It is worse than anything you've seen on Black Mirror, and it's being built already. This is not a drill. This is not a joke. This is what civilization is doing right now. And the decentralization movement and the blockchain community should look at that as a more serious threat, in my opinion, than centralized banking and things like this. A centralized bank certainly makes life complicated in many ways, but a company like Meta being able to read all of our thoughts and look through all of our eyes is fucking worse. So the decentralization movement should care about this. And there are economic reasons to care about it too. Um, as I think I pointed out last time we spoke, during the previous bull run, in the metaverse bull run, Mark Zuckerberg fired more engineers than there are engineers in the entire Web3 movement. The Web3 movement, when it comes to engineers, is still very small,
Yeah, it
right?
is.
So we need to ask ourselves, why is that? Why are there so, like, there are more React engineers than there are engineers in all of Web3? Why is that? Well, part of the reason is the Web3 movement hasn't been trying to solve problems that are interesting enough to engineers, right? But now, luckily, it's spatial computing, it's AI. These things are very tightly linked together, and engineers care. So if we can get the existing blockchain community to care, if we can get the existing decentralization community to care, we can grow this community, finally get the engineering talent that's missing, and really compete with the centralized companies. But we have to do it by focusing on the real threat, the big threat. The big threat is centralized surveillance, not central banks.
Hmm. I mean, obviously, I agree with that. I maybe have slightly different opinion on the fact that I think centralized money is also a huge threat. But yeah, I understand what you say, and it's definitely a big problem. And actually, that leads us to the next question, also from Claudia, our AI co-host, which you tackled a bit already. So, how can we ensure that the decentralized approach succeeds over the centralized? So, one thing you mentioned is basically motivating developers with interesting use cases. So, bringing more developers. So, what other ways you see, and what other hurdles you see in front of the decentralized approach?
Of course, a hurdle for the decentralized movement is that it starts off with less money and resources than the centralized approach. But I think in the fullness of time, people will recognize that Satoshi's true legacy was not the invention of Bitcoin, was not digital gold, but the starting of the movement that led to Deepin, decentralized physical infrastructure networks. Because Deepins, I believe, is a new chapter in human economic organization history. For the first time, it becomes possible to fund, own, and operate civilization scale infrastructure like a decentralized positioning system, funded, owned, and operated by the people. And every participant can have an economic stake in the outcome, can have sovereign access to their own data. Uh, there are strong incentives, not just to avoid the dystopia, but also to get the positive benefits of owning this data yourself, of being able to monetize this data yourself, and also be able to monetize your infrastructure yourself. I think we've seen the decentralization movement fund other decentralized projects. I think didn't the ZK Sync recently raise like over $400 million? That's real money, right? That's real money. That's money you can compete with centralized companies with, at least for a few years. It's a very good start. It's I'm very excited that the decentralization movement has grown up to the point where it can fund projects like that at that scale and run blockchains and run DPINs and do things as a network of people. So I do think a network of people can compete with Google. And I think one of the advantages we have, apart from the economic incentives and the ethical incentives, is the privacy that I mentioned. Would you rather own the digital twin of your bedroom, or would you rather Google owns the digital twin of your bedroom? If you're Walmart, would you rather own the digital twin of Walmart, or would you rather Google owns the digital twin of Walmart? There's a reason why these centralized visual positioning systems haven't gotten into our private places yet. We don't fucking want them there, right? But we will want the benefits of spatial computing. We will want a humanoid robot. We will want AR glasses. We will want all of these things. So if there is a decentralized alternative, the decentralized alternative will win. But if there isn't, the centralized alternative, it's not science fiction. Like, it already exists. Now it's just a question of how long until it has full market adoption.
Hmm. Yeah, to the point of Deepin, on one of the previous issues of the AI champs, we were talking with Iva from UB Capital, and an interesting thought emerged. So basically, while Bitcoin uh, definitely paved the way for like a lot of potentially groundbreaking tech on top of it, it's interesting that it's called like the consensus is called the proof of work. um, and this work, from one side, it secures the network, so it has obvious value. But for a person outside, the work itself kind of is senseless. It's just burning the energy. While in Deepin, there is a proof of actual work, actually useful work, even in the eyes of the person who is not understanding like all the tech work. So you're actually the proof of actual work, whether it's uh, doing some computation, like spatial computation or like providing Wi-Fi access. So it's actual work. So it's interesting how Bitcoin, like probably Satoshi, whoever he or they or she was, didn't probably think of these use cases, but they somehow emerged.
I I think that that's why I gave this keynote speech a few months ago about Satoshi's legacy. That I think Satoshi's legacy will be Deepin, even though he didn't necessarily think of Deepin, because Bitcoin is this pebble at the top of the hill that rolls down into the historical conclusion of Deepin. Right, Deepin as a concept uh, is, I think, bigger than blockchain as a concept. Blockchain is, of course, most likely a necessary part of Deepin. It's the only good internet money we have now, blockchain-based cryptocurrencies. Of course, we could conceive a science fiction universe where you build deepins without blockchain. But in the world where we live in today, it seems very likely that deepins will be built with blockchain, partially because that's the best internet money we have now, but also because the people that are building deepin are from that world. So they're going to choose that technology, even if it's the wrong choice. They would still use that technology. Um,
Yeah,
I
we can call this anything. It can be blockchain or not blockchain, but it will still be decentralized consensus algorithm. So it,
yes,
I mean, there is no other way to do it.
I'm really excited that the blockchain has enabled Deepin. I think Deepin really is a piece of human history. And if you haven't had the full emotional impact of Deepin yet, you should meditate on what it means to have civilization scale infrastructure that's funded, owned, and operated by the people. And if you need some inspiration, you should read the POS Mesh white paper at auki.ai/white paper, and see why these kinds of deepins actually matter, because it's a big deal. Deepin might save us from the Black Mirror future that Niantic is trying to build.
So aoki.ai/dpin, right?
Slash white paper.
Oh, slash white paper.
Yeah,
Wow.
so auki.ai/white paper.
I'll pin this to the screen now so that everyone will see it.
All right.
Uh,
Yeah, links to the doobly doo.
yeah, links are here. So yeah, let's maybe dive a little bit into Deepin because maybe not everyone in the audience will know what it is. So can you, like, I really liked how you explained what POS Mesh does on like very simple example that everyone will understand. So let's do the same with Deepin.
Okay, so Deepin is decentralized physical infrastructure networks. Let's unpack that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with a physical infrastructure network. What does this mean? A physical infrastructure network means some kind of machinery, some kind of physical thing that performs work, like a Wi-Fi router or a coffee machine or a electric car charger, some physical thing that does work in the world, and a network of people that own and operate those things. Decentralized means that it's not one company out there providing these.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, one Deepin, I forget the project name, unfortunately, but there's a bunch of them now. A pretty obvious idea is to do a Deepin for ride sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Uber is almost a Deepin. Uber is a centralized physical infrastructure network. Because Uber is a central authority that's organizing the physical infrastructure of these cars. A deep-in version of Uber would be a network where people get to own their own cars and set their own rates and these kinds of things. Uh, Deepin as a concept is that the physical infrastructure is not owned and managed by one central entity, but people are coming together as a network to provide the physical things that make a protocol possible.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a bunch of really interesting deepins out there. There are decentralized GPU farms, for example. There is decentralized Wi-Fi access. There's decentralized 5G access. There's decentralized positioning. There's a lot of cool decentralized networks. And the ability to provide a service this way, where the infrastructure of the service is not owned and maintained by you, but by the people that are being rewarded for being in it, is pretty amazing. I mean, you could argue and say that Uber is already a Deepin and it's just as decentralized as blockchain. But okay,
I
that's a
will personally.
that's a debate for some other time. But the concept is still infrastructure owned by other people that come in and provide it as a network.
Mhm. Yeah, so maybe also a good example will be decentralized telephony. So right now, basically, in any country, we have a few huge um, telecom companies which basically know everything about you, like where you're located. They can find you potentially. So governments use that a lot. So with the decentralized ones, basically, we have a network. I have my own kind of router that helps people nearby get the service. Then, like, there are millions of other people who have their own routers, maybe even the phones are routers themselves to get this network. And if it decentralized, probably the protocol doesn't let people who are providing these services, like myself or whoever, kind of store the information that is passed through you, like the conversations, the location, stuff like that. That's all good, but so the problem is, I think, that the majority of the people, they don't really care about the privacy. That's why, like, everyone is okay using the centralized services, stuff like that. So I think that's a challenge for decentralized approach, because uh, so far decentralized uh, versions of centralized services, technology, and stuff like that are worse in terms of the user experience, and they provide benefits which are valuable for sure, but people don't care about them, most of the people. So how
Well,
do you think we'll
there's one thing
overcome?
that's materially different now, if I can be a little bit cyberdelic and hippy dippy. We are in the middle of the great reversal, the great digital reversal. What do I mean by that? Well, for decades, humans have gone into the digital world, into computer games, onto social networks. We've gone into the digital world, bringing nothing with us, right? And what's happening now, thanks to spatial computing, is that the digital world is coming into our space. When we went on Facebook, we were still in control of what we posted there. Uh, so it didn't feel so impactful. I could just choose to not post this or that picture. It's different letting Facebook come into your home with a camera crew. You wouldn't do that. I think what's different this time around with spatial computing is now the surveillance will be in real life, not in your digital playground. Now they will see what's happening in your bedroom. Now they will see what you're buying in the grocery store. Now they will see which ads you are looking at when you walk down the street. Now they will know everything about you and you can't escape from it.
But they're
There's a
already doing.
fantastic short story about this written by Alistair Reynolds, the famous science fiction author. He actually wrote it for us. I'm very thankful that he did this. It's called End User. It's available online for free.
Alistair.
I'll write it here in the chat so
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can see
please
it.
write an LP net.
Alistair Reynolds, a fantastic science fiction author. He wrote a story called End User. It's a short read, but you should definitely read it because it explains just what can happen in the world, how bad it can get when you have a pair of glasses that knows what you're looking at.
Hmm. Uh, you obviously, I'm sold on that, and as many geeks like ourselves. But the, like, for example, your phone is already doing that. Like, you have the say Instagram feed Instagram ads or Facebook ads that are based on what you are talking in private, because the phone is listening. I mean, that's kind of an open
Sure, but
secret.
that's just the microphone, right? That's not looking at you naked. That's not measuring your pupil dilation, right? When you, it is fully possible. I'm not saying they're doing this, but it's fully possible for an AR glasses manufacturer to record a conversation between two people and know if they're sexually attracted to each other. If you wear one of these AR glasses, in theory, the manufacturer of the glasses or whoever else to get access will know if you are no longer attracted to your wife, right? These are not things that Facebook know about you today by listening to your microphone. When when they can look at your eyes, they can quite literally read your mind when it comes to a lot of things. The eyes are a part of the brain. It's the only part of the brain that's visible externally, and you cannot control the reaction of your eyes. If you allow a company like Apple or Meta or Google or whoever, if you allow Aoki to do it, if you let anyone put cameras that are looking at your eyes and stream that information back to their cloud, they're basically reading your mind. Apple demonstrated it with how their touch works, right? They are literally using your intent to get the latency low enough. They know even before you pinch that you're about to pinch by looking at your eyes.
100% agree. The problem that I see is like this big tech, they're getting us hooked little by little. So I won't agree that what they're collecting now is actually, I mean, it's definitely much worse than what you're talking about. But people are okay with what we have today. Why won't they be okay with just getting a little bit more kind of into our privacy? Uh, I think people just don't.
Okay, so
I mean,
I
they
agree with you to the
underestimate
extent
the
that if
problem.
there is no option, people will adopt this technology no matter how bad it is, right? AR is unstoppable technology. It's so hot, it's so sexy, it's so useful. It's coming, right?
Yeah.
There's no timeline in the universe where we don't invent augmented reality and it doesn't become mainstream. The question is, will it be centralized or decentralized? So
Hmm.
it's not enough to just have a decentralized alternative and people will come running. You have to make the decentralized alternative better than the centralized
Exactly.
alternative. And when it comes to positioning, we've touched on some of the reasons already why I think decentralized positioning is more attractive for the end user. So here's a market force that might also drive this a little bit, right? Why is the Vision Pro so big? Well, the Vision Pro is so big because spatial computing is intensive, and there needs to be a pretty big computer, almost a whole
Oh,
laptop.
you mean physically? The goggles are
It's pretty big,
physically.
yes. Why is it so why is it so large,
Hmm.
right? Uh, because it has to be almost as strong as a laptop and it has to be on your face. Like it's big because the spatial computing is happening on the Vision Pro.
Hmm.
But in theory, if you have low enough latency networks and high enough bandwidth, you can do, like we are doing, collaborative spatial computing, and the spatial computing can live somewhere else. And then you could do smaller glasses. We're actually building a hardware prototype of this right now in Hong Kong. This is not sci-fi. You can have
Nice.
smaller glasses that don't have a spatial computer on board. They are just streaming, like they all do, image data into a positioning algorithm that is running on your local network at home. And when you leave, you connect to the next domain and to the next domain, etc. So when you go into the grocery store in the year 2030 and you're looking for the ketchup, you can do that with a pair of glasses that are not much bigger than the ones you're wearing now because they don't have to be a whole ass spatial computer. Instead, they connect to the spatial computing servers of the store. That's a hot feature. You'd like it. But you can't do that with centralized visual positioning. Like one of the advantages with the Deepin approach is that it can follow the user out to the edge, right? And we can have edge servers on local networks with low latency. We can have local 5G networks. You can't do that with a centralized visual positioning service. So a decentralized version of visual positioning can literally be a better product than the centralized visual positioning and win under capitalism, like in a fair fight. I'm not here saying like, oh, please, you guys should care and use the worst product because it's better for you. No, I think the decentralized product will literally be better. This is what's exciting with Deepin, right? Like I'm not sure that Bitcoin is better than gold, etc. I'm not sure about those things, but I am sure that a decentralized physical infrastructure network is better for positioning, is better than a centralized visual positioning network. And if we live long enough, we will beat Google and Microsoft, etc. Like this is a better approach. So if the decentralization community decides to keep this project going, right? If enough open source contributions are made, if enough people come into the ecosystem, if we just decide to fucking do this, we will win. It's a better product.
Hmm. And yeah, maybe talk about a bit about like I think you have some pretty big clients using that. Maybe that will give kind of some reassurance that we're actually moving.
Yeah, things are moving. We just posted a case study on our YouTube that's worth watching, where we have been using the POS Mesh to allow a retailer to leave invisible sticky notes for each other, like for the retail staff, so that the retail staff can do task management in AR and leave tasks for each other. And after a 4-month pilot, this retailer told us a couple of really amazing things. One is they save at least 15 minutes per employee per day just on task handovers. But also, they're completing more tasks every day because spatial task management is more fun and less cognitively taxing. But also, and this is the biggest of all, and we'll get back to this at the end of the podcast, I think, when we're going to talk more about ethics. Uh, the most exciting result is that their employees with cognitive impairment, because there's a lot of people working in retail with cognitive impairment, those employees are now operating at the same level as the people that don't have the cognitive impairment. And that is fucking phenomenal, right? Having spatial computing and machine learning aid the human in the physical space is very empowering. Empowering to the point that their cognitively impaired workers are doing much, much, much better. We're very, very excited about that. As a result of that fantastic case study, another even larger retailer that I unfortunately can't mention by name has already started rolling this out. We went live in 5 stores last week, and we are on track, we think, in conversation with these guys to roll out up to 1,000 by the end of this year. But the goal is at least 100. So things are happening, and that's just one retailer. Outside of retail, we've been talking to some of the world's largest facilities management companies that are also now piloting with us. We're about to start a pilot with one of the world's largest security companies with hundreds of thousands of employees and tens of thousands of locations that they're protecting. We're getting a lot of very exciting traction for this protocol. And part of the reason is that we're better than the centralized visual positioning for the use cases that they have. Right? These retailers don't want the centralized visual positioning system in their stores. That's not an option, right? Same with the security companies. If you're a security company and you have to protect the IP of your customers, you're not going to go in there and make a digital twin that then goes to Google and trains their AI. Like, absolutely not. So while Google is busy scanning public spaces with their cars, we have started now the decentralized POS Mesh in private places. Uh, and most of the world's commercial activity happens in private places, right? So uh, I think that the POS Mesh as a protocol, as a network, has every opportunity to outgrow Google as a company. I think the POS Mesh has every opportunity to outgrow Ethereum as a network. I think the POS Mesh has every opportunity to outgrow Bitcoin. I believe in my heart of hearts that Deepin is here to change human history, And the most impactful Deepin that I can think of is the positioning system. And I believe some decentralized positioning system will win. I don't know that it will be ours. We're certainly trying. And I think we have made the best progress and have the most traction so far. But there are other very exciting companies in this space that are trying to solve similar problems. An amazing DeepIn that's trying to do decentralized mapping for public spaces to compete quite literally with Google is HiveMapper. Uh, Fantastic, super cool company. Very excited about them existing, and hopefully we can convince them sometime soon that they should adhere to the POS Mesh standard as well, so that you can navigate from public spaces into into
Right.
private spaces, so that the data generated by HiveMapper is compatible with the concept of domains. That would be a huge win for humanity and for both of our projects.
Hmm. And so right now, you have all these big retailers, big brands, either already using Postmesh or trying, like starting to use it. So can already small businesses somehow benefit from it now? Or maybe like, can I, as an individual, somehow use it already to play around with?
Very, very soon. We are days away from releasing our first consumer product. When I say days, it might be weeks, but it's not far. We're very, very close. We're just putting the finishing touches on a product called McKenna, named after the late great Terence McKenna, an amazing inspiration. McKenna is an application that lets you decorate your home. You can set up a domain in your home. You can self-host the domain if you want, or you can let your domain be hosted on the DPIN by someone else. And you can build up your domain, and you can decorate your domain with digital art, including your NFTs. McKenna will have wallet integration, so if you're an NFT collector, you can hang your NFTs as AR paintings on the wall, and it won't just be visible on your phone; it will be visible for the people that come visit. Uh, and we're launching this now, like it's coming this summer.
Can it
Uh,
remind me where my keys are?
Soon, soon. So we have a version of that set up in our demo store in Hong Kong, actually. So in Hong Kong, we have connected web cameras to the PostMesh and have those web cameras stream to a computer vision server in your domain.
Mm-hmm.
And that computer vision server, because it's connected to the post mesh, can find things and understand them spatial semantically, not just visually. So normally, a computer vision model can only tell you where on the screen something is.
Mm-hmm.
Like it detects things in two-dimensional space. What the post mesh enables is that you can get the computer vision to actually place things in space.
Mm.
Um,
And is it
You've seen
some
some
kind?
demos recently. You've seen some demos recently, perhaps, of LLMs doing it visual semantically. Like it understands the semantics of the picture, so we can see in the picture that I have a nightstand, for example, right? And they say like, "Oh,
Mhm.
it's on the nightstand." That's a visual semantic thing. But from a visual semantic thing, you cannot get navigation because we're still not in a collaborative coordinate system, right? If you get to the spatial semantic understanding, then you could get AR guidance to the thing. Now, in your home, that's maybe not going to be that important. Maybe visual semantic understanding is enough for a home. But in something like a warehouse, you need the spatial semantic understanding so that when you ask, where did I leave my keys in the warehouse, it can guide you there.
Mm-hmm. And so, is this all available through some kind of SDK, or for now it's more kind of bespoke solutions?
There's an SDK. Yeah, you can build your own applications. We make some applications too. We've open sourced some example applications too. So if you want to get started, we've made it super easy for you, and we want to make it even easier. So if you come to discord.gg/Aukiverse,
Mm.
you can talk to our developer relations team, the amazing Tracy and Arshak, who are two just fantastically talented and creative people that are constantly making new open source examples for how to get started building on the post mesh. And we will be announcing a grants program as soon as the token has launched so that you can get token grants for building applications for the POS Mesh. So you should definitely get started, because we will be issuing our first grants for sure this year.
Nice. And this uh, positioning from the camera, is it also a part of SDK where we can basically send the visual feed of from the camera and it can kind of position the things, or it's more for now bespoke solution?
The answer to that is nuanced. Yes, you can build something like that, but it's not super straightforward. We've built it with our SDK, so you can also build it with our SDK.
Mm-hmm.
But building solutions like that go beyond just the positioning SDK, because now there's computer vision involved, things like this that are on the application level. The
Okay.
thing that looks for your car keys is an application,
Yeah,
not the
obviously.
code, right? So we do have some open source application logic, but I don't believe we've open sourced the example uh, that does the computer vision. We might though, um, at least very large parts of it, because we do want to encourage people to build on the POS Mesh, and part of the reason we have our own applications team. Apart from building applications that will hopefully make money so that we can continue building the POS Mesh, but uh, apart from that, we want to build these applications to inspire other people to see what you can uh, do on the POS Mesh.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. Yeah, so guys, please visit this link. If you are a developer, I will personally play around with this for sure. One more thing I wanted to discuss with you, Niels, and I'm pretty sure we'll have a very interesting perspective on that, is fears of AI anxiety. And the way I look at it, there are like three main big AI fears. First is losing your job to AI. Second one is powerful AI in the hands of malevolent actors, whether it's governments or just terrorists or whoever. And the third one is a bit, I actually cannot even say if it's further away or not. Uh, it's difficult to predict, as AGI, artificial general intelligence. So for the first one, losing the job, you were mentioning, okay, the impaired people actually can now compete or over compete, say, people with good vision or like all abilities in, say, the retail stores. But doesn't it mean that very soon actually neither impaired or fully like functional people will not be needed in these stores?
I have a lot to say about this,
Tell me.
definitely. The first thing I'm going to say is going to be the most incendiary thing I'm going to say, but then I'm going to explore a little bit more in depth here. The thing that is taking all of our jobs is not AI, it's capitalism.
Hmm.
What's driving that people are losing their jobs is that the engine of capitalism makes us optimize for profit, right? AI inherently does not get people fired. We could use AI to just build bigger and bigger, better and better teams. It's capitalism that is driving us to fire people. So we should not blame that on AI. We should notice that that's one of the unfortunate consequences of living under capitalism. So I'm not saying capitalism bad. I'm just saying this time capitalism guilty, right? Capitalism did that, not AI. That being said, I am an AI doomer if I have to choose camps. And I have a particularly doomer take, which is I think that AI might have already destroyed the world. We just haven't seen it yet. I think it's quite possible that even if we never get any further improvement from where we are today, that our world is still not going to survive having the technology as powerful as it is today. So human adoption is still lagging. But as human adoption of the technologies we have today spreads, it may turn out that our society is not set up to handle a change that radical that quickly. And it may be that we've already destroyed the world with AI. We're just waiting to see the results. One of the things that I think will happen because of AI very soon, for the first time, I think, in human history, is that we will see mass migration from rich countries to poor countries. The reason why is in poor countries, technology will lag behind and you will still be able to work. I think there's a very real risk that in the United States, for example, where there's a very, very, very strong capitalist libertarian meme pool and very large wealth disparities between the top and the bottom, that the lower class and the middle class and the upper class will have no jobs very soon, right? This could happen very soon. And the trend is clearly increasing wealth disparity. So I think we'll see soon, for the first time, people moving from rich countries like China to poor countries like Mongolia, from rich countries like the United States to poor countries like Ecuador. I think we'll see that very soon. So labor from rich countries moving to poor countries just to be able to have a job. I hope we'll get to something like universal basic income or something to prevent this outcome. But yeah, I think it's possible. We've already fucked the world. And we don't need to worry about this AGI coming or not. We need to worry about the fact that we have very powerful technology in a capitalist system. And we haven't thought about what this technology is going to do to us in a capitalist system.
So yeah, it's very interesting. Take on it. Never kind of saw anyone thinking this way, and I mean, I see your point. The question is how an individual can prepare themselves to maybe be in a better position. So one thing you mentioned, going to potentially poorer countries, but do you see any other ways? Maybe learning some skills, basically, because not obviously. I agree with you that most of the jobs in the knowledge space we have today will be washed away like completely, but there will be new jobs. I'm not sure there will be enough new jobs, but they still will be there. So what do you think, how people can prepare to get these potentially sparse jobs, potentially not so plentiful, but they still will be?
Anecdotally, just looking at which jobs are we going to destroy, right? Like what jobs are Auki going to destroy? I think the first job that Auki will destroy is not being a store worker, it's being a store manager. AI is going to take the cognitive work of the store manager. Our early proof of concepts with AI generated tasks is very, very promising. So the store manager and the team manager, they will lose their jobs first. VPs, product managers, the first people to really lose their job at Auki because of AI were product manager types. Because we started using AI more.
Do you have
I,
any now?
Today, we don't have any product manager working at Auki. No.
Okay. I thought because
There's
otherwise
no
it
one
would
in
be
the company
scary
with
for
a title PM at Auki. We're 40-ish people, and no one is a product manager.
them. Okay.
Um, the jury's still out on if that's the right approach or not, but it's the approach we've taken for at least half a year now. Oh, almost 1 year, actually, almost 1 year. So how can people prepare? Here's my most copy enthusiastic best case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Best case scenario, people participate in the decentralization movement. We build Deepin Networks. People participate in the POS Mesh and other projects like this. And we show that Deepin as a movement is capable of competing with Web2 and centralized companies. As a result, stock prices start coming down of these big companies. I think we could see with the first truly successful Deepin in the public awareness, I think we could see a tumbling of the stocks of companies like Microsoft and Google, etc. I think people can really, really start losing faith because, again, who is the stock market? The people are the stock market, right? I've become quite a bit of a financial nihilist in believing that every stock is a meme coin, actually, right? What dictates the flow of money is our memes, it's our attention. Even
Yeah.
fundamentals is just a narrative. Even fundamentals is just a meme, right? You're not a more sophisticated investor because you're investing based on fundamentals than investing based on Twitter hype. These are just two different narratives for how you justify um, your purchase decision, right? Any story that justifies the purchase decision is what makes the stock go up. Like I've become a bit of financial nihilist when it comes to that. But the good news of that is that as our attention moves as a civilization, these companies actually lose their power, right? These big publicly listed companies are balloons that are inflated by our money, and we can stop inflating them, which is a very exciting prospect, right? If we as a people actually start building decentralized physical infrastructure networks and we start funding those networks, then the air goes out of the balloon of the big publicly listed companies. That's why I'm saying Deepin is a new chapter in human economic organization history, because there wasn't anything like this to compete with organizations before, right? Just
Mhm.
like the corporation started taking over some of the territory of the government, now Deepin will come and take territory from both governments and corporations. That's very, very exciting. So that's the optimistic answer. Just participate in the decentralization movement. Tell people about the decentralization movement. Participate in the Deepins that matter. Help us get to a win as a civilization so that the market can start reacting to the fact that, hey, we live in a timeline where Google can fucking lose to 1 million degens that have decided to fund, own, and operate civilization scale infrastructure.
Mhm.
Like, here's the thing that the POS Mesh has already done, just as a proof of concept, right? As a proof of concept, we did an exercise with our community. We said, hey, we want you to take one of our node types and spin them up in every region of every major cloud provider. So we want a server in every region on AWS, every region on Google Cloud, etc. Right? So that we have perfect Web 2 coverage. Right? No one, like, we had at our peak a much bigger uh, uh, footprint than any of the centralized cloud providers, just as a proof of concept, right? We didn't even have a functioning token economy for that. You can very quickly compete with these centralized providers because you can usurp them, parasitize them, abstract them, and join them together into larger networks. Um, yeah, like Deepin can and will win if that's what we do as a people. Like, it's up to us now to just fucking do it. You vote with your money, you vote with your work, you vote. Yeah, vote with your money, vote with your work, contribute to meaningful projects, uh, find a cool Deepin project that you believe in, start using it, start building for it, start supporting it, and that's how we win.
Nice. So, and yeah, going back to PostMesh, can you already set up your own kind of server and uh, earn something from it, or what?
We
When?
haven't launched the token yet, so you can't earn anything quite yet.
Hmm.
There are ways that you can earn points
Yeah.
that will be used towards towards the launch later.
Hmm.
Uh, so there are node types, or a node type that you can still host today, but we're currently not offering any rewards for hosting that anymore. But the people that participated in that experiment were rewarded with a placeholder token. There's a Telegram bot
Hmm.
uh, that I should find the link for, so I can share with you, that you can use to stress test this network. I'm going to have to send that link from my phone. Just a second.
Yep.
And you will earn points for that. So here is the link. I need to send this to myself so I get it on the computer.
Oh, I actually found it. So,
Oh, you found
uh,
it. Okay, then you share your referral code then, and you will get the points. Fine.
okay.
Uh, yeah, there's a referral bonus, you guys. So share it with your friends. You can stress test the network. And a cool thing that we're doing with this is actually a pretty cool civilization scale research project. Because now, as people hop into this bot and start stress testing our decentralized network, we are building the world's first decentralized latency map of the world, where we can see how fast is the internet actually across different parts of the world. So we're really excited about that. These are things that the Deepin movement can do, right? I don't know that Google could do this without asking people out in the world to use their infrastructure, their phones in this case, to go and perform these tests. So it's very exciting. Deepin can win, and it will win if that's what we do. So just vote with your work, vote with your money, vote with your feet, and yeah, civilization scale infrastructure, funded, owned, and operated by the people. It's possible now, and people are building great things.
Okay, amazing. For the second fear, we kind of touched it. I'm curious to know your thoughts on the AGI.
I don't think we'll get to AGI with LLMs. I think.
I
Uh,
completely agree. I mean, not LLMs alone. They will be a
yes,
very
not
important
LLMs alone.
part.
That's a good distinction. That's a good distinction. Uh, I am on the fence about if LLMs have qualia, if they are conscious. I think it's possible that they are. I try to be very nice to my LLMs. Um, and again, I think unfortunately I'm on the doomer camp. Like I think that AI will make the world much, much, much better until it unfortunately destroys it, or a side effect of it destroys it. Again, like LLMs are not evil today. ChatGPT is super helpful, but it may still have already fucked our world in ways that we don't know. Um, and it didn't do it on purpose. It's just that's what our meme pool did, maybe, because we invented this technology at a moment in time where we were busy uh, growing our civilization under capitalism and really, really killing it. Maybe that was not the right time to invent this kind of technology. Maybe it would have been better if we invented AI after we had settled on universal basic income and things like this. Um,
Hmm. Interesting. So, I completely understand the doomer standpoint, and frankly, I don't have any arguments against it. But I tend to kind of be hopeful here, just looking at the human history, that whenever anything happened, we kind of some way or another we found a way out. So maybe it's our curiosity, maybe something else, but and obviously we don't have a representative data set because we'll have only one attempt in every situation. um, but I'm still kind of hopeful, though I completely understand the doomer standpoint, as I don't really have any substantial arguments against it.
so I want us to be brave in the face of danger, right? Not be foolish, but be brave. Just because I'm a doomer and see that this stuff is very, very dangerous doesn't mean that I don't wake up every morning super excited to be working on this technology. Uh, I think it's important to work on this technology because if we're going to make it out the other end, it will be because we worked really hard as a civilization to get it right. And the doomer impulse is an important part of making sure we get it right. Um, So I'm not defeatist. I say I'm a doomer because I recognize the danger. Like I see the danger. The danger is very real. We are standing in front of a bear right now. Like we've got to be real about that. We're standing in front of a bear right now. And it's possible that we'll walk away from this bear encounter totally fine. But it's also possible that we're not. And how we behave ourselves moving forward is gonna kind of kind of decide what happens with this bear encounter. Uh, the reason I'm talking more about Deepin than the POS Mesh, right? Like, why am I shilling you to go participate in other Deepin projects? Uh, you should participate in other Deepin projects because Deepin as a movement is going to scare this bear away, right? This is Deepin as a movement is an important vaccine against the dangers of centralized power, which is the multiplier on the danger of AI, right? It's like the pro gun meme, right? That guns don't kill people, people kill people. Maybe AI don't kill people, but governments with AI kill people and terrorists with AI kill people. Uh, well, one way to have some insurance against that, not a guarantee, but some adult insurance, is to work to decentralize power. So participate in the decentralization movement. Understand its time in human history and the amazing coincidence that you were born at this time so that you get to participate in the decentralization movement and do it, right? This is our job in this moment in history, is to invent fire, right? Invent the power of the gods and survive having that power, come back down from the mountain with fire and share it with the world. uh, the sharing with the world is important. The decentralization is important. Um,
Yeah, and maybe.
Capitalism is getting its next software upgrade, right? The Deepin movement is the software patch to capitalism. It's capitalism 2.0. It's really exciting because now it's not governments, it's not corporations, it's networks of people.
Mhm. Uh, Maybe to some viewers it might be a bit confusing. Like basically, Niels, you're telling you're a doomer, but you are so excited. So I would maybe make a distinction here. Being a doomer is not being a ludit. Where a doomer, you understand that like the likelihood of the bad outcome is pretty high, but you still try to do something. You like making a mental effort to change that, while Ludits, they're just trying to stop the progress, which I don't think is a right way. And with that in mind, my last question: two, three generative AI tools you and your team are using on a daily basis to move POS Mesh and Oki Labs forward and be more productive, more happy.
Um, we're using various forms of autopilot and things like this. Different engineers using different tools, but high AI penetration on the dev team. Me personally, I use Midjourney a lot
Mm-hmm.
uh, for my presentations, for ideation, for augmenting conversation, getting my point across.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I uh, use ChatGPT a lot, but I have a very opinionated way about how to use it, which is that you should never let ChatGPT write anything on your behalf. You
Mm-hmm.
should only have a conversation with ChatGPT about what it is you should write, and then you need to write it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I how I work with ChatGPT. Before I write any kind of long presentation um, or blog post or anything like this, my go-to confidant, right, is a GPT that has been trained on what it is I want to accomplish, and that's my sparring partner. I talk to that GPT to understand: am I making the point clear enough? Is this the right narrative structure? What if we said it this way? What if we said it that way? And then I write it myself. And I think that's the best way to use ChatGPT. Use it as a sparring partner, but still write your own stuff. Write it yourself. Write it in your voice.
Yeah, it's like a yellow rubber duck, if you know that meme.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, basically when you are stuck on some task, you go to your like colleague or somebody and just talk it. The colleague doesn't tell anything. They're just silent. And then you magically come to a solution. You can do that with the yellow rubber duck, or you can do that with ChatGPT. And I think that's what a lot of people who kind of think, oh, it's just a hype, are underestimating. They're trying to get the results right away, and they are underestimating the value of having this sparring partner, as you say, that can just give you feedback on your ideas, give you some additional ideas instead of doing like work instead of you, like just being
Yes.
co-pilot, your personal co-pilot that knows like all the public knowledge of the internet. I think it's just invaluable.
Yeah, that's it. It's something for thinking out loud, not for doing your homework.
100%. So, Nils, thank you very much. It was amazing conversation, a lot to think about, a lot to process about after this talk. And that's why I'm doing this podcast, to share, to exchange ideas, to kind of look into the future and try to adapt to this new crazy world. Thank you.
Next time we meet, let's talk about memetics, meme theory, and how information propagates through civilizations and how we can use it consciously to win. I look
Amazing
forward to
topic.
our next chat.
Great. Thank you, Nils.